So mine's going to be on the female gaze in Villette by Charlotte Bronte. Throughout Villette, emphasis is placed on the act of looking, and this may be involved the gaze or in terms of surveillance, and also for the purpose of narration. The characters Lucy Snow and Madame Beck both demonstrate the use of the female gaze, and I will be going through how they differ and how they are similar. So, firstly we have Lucy's gaze. Lucy Snow observes others due to her curiosity, in order to understand those around her and the role that she has within society. That through observation, she is able to strengthen her personality and explore her own sense of self. Furthermore, through the narration of her story, Lucy must recreate her own actions and emotions, and therefore she is able to observe herself in her writing. This is shown in the passages in which she reflects on her actions. For example, after her experience of acting in The Fate, we have this quotation here where she decides that though she took it on to please Monsieur Paul, she actually pleased herself in doing it but didn't really want to do it again. And she's able to kind of observe herself, her actions, the way in which they affected others, the knowledge that she gained from this, and how the experience helped her grow. Next, Lucy's gaze upon others is a moralised one. She objects to the secretive and corrupt nature of observation and believes, according to Jung, that there must be an underlying plan of reform for the surveillance to be justifiable. Throughout the novel, Lucy describes her surveillance of Geneva and attempts to guide her with regards to her morals. At The Fate, Lucy uncovers through observation of each of these characters that the way in which Geneva is letting Dr. John and De Hamel believe she's interested in them both as suitors. Upon this discovery, she immediately takes these actions. I now set her down on a seat and told her she should not stir till she had avowed, which she meant in the end to accept, the man or the monkey. This is a perfect example of Lucy's moralised gaze. In her observation, she has done something she believes to be wrong against a man she's very fond of, and therefore strives to make it right, sparing him the pain, and also De Hamel, despite her calling him a monkey. Throughout the novel, Lucy places herself where she is invisible to others, but still able to observe them. Without a doubt, Lucy's favourite position in social situations is to remain the unnoted but all-seeing observer, which, as we know, allows her to make this discovery about Geneva and Dr. John. Consequently, Lucy's will to avoid the gaze of others, but quietly observe, is also present in her narrative. Throughout the novel, she describes the stories of many other characters, and in the first few chapters, when she resides with the Bretons, I, as the reader, began to think that perhaps Paulina was the protagonist and Lucy merely the narrator. She does not participate in the life there, but rather watches it, and as we go on, we obviously find out that Lucy is the protagonist, but she carries on describing the life of other female characters, such as her observations of Geneva and Madame Beck, Miss Marshall, etc. We now turn to Gilbert's quote, "Yet Lucy seems determined not to exist in another's existence. We soon notice that her voyeuristic detachment defines her in terms of others as inexorably as Polly's parasitic attachments define the younger girls." Throughout the novel, Lucy does not participate in the action, but merely observes it. Gilbert argues that perhaps Lucy's sense of self does not conform to the literary or social stereotypes provided by her culture to define and circumscribe female life. In this sense, the other women who she describes throughout the novel conform to these stereotypes, and through observing and describing their actions, Lucy allows the reader to identify their characteristics within her, and this is how Lucy is defined in terms of others. We now turn to What is a Woman to Do? In the Elizabeth Strutt essay, Feminine Soul, she examines whether literary pursuits are compatible with the nature and habits of women. When presenting the view that women are not suited to such pursuits, she writes, Independently, moreover, of the mental temperament of women, being such as to deprive them of the great sinews of an historical writer, correctness and impartiality, the comparatively secluded nature of their habits, and their moral delicacy is an obstacle to their acquiring that deep insight into society, that entire knowledge of the various classes and individuals of which it is made up, which are absolutely requisite for those to possess, who undertake to describe not only the actions of mankind, but the motives also, by which those actions have been prompted. From Lucy's example, we can see that this is not true. Lucy uses her secluded nature and moral delicacy to gain insight into her own personality as well as those around her. She even goes so far as to stop any moral corruption she sees in others. She may not acquire entire knowledge of the various classes, but she certainly does with regards to some of the individuals she observes throughout the novel. Strutt goes on to explain that women are capable of writing that which requires refined taste, a deep insight into the human, as well as displaying an acuteness of perception and apprehension. Through her observation within the narrative and the reflective observations in her writing, Lucy shows this acute perception and strives for a deeper insight into herself and others. Now turn to Madame Beck's gaze. Madame Beck presents a different type of gaze to that of Lucy, and her methods of surveillance are employed for different reasons. Madame Beck's gaze is described by Jung as criminalised, because she observes in order to find out secrets and gain power over others. Her mode of surveillance is used as social control within her establishment, and an example of this is when she first arrives in school. This passage is from the moment where Madame Beck goes through all of Lucy's possessions in order to find something out about Lucy as she's taken on as an employer. It also demonstrates several of the characteristics Madame Beck continues to present throughout the novel. There is one way in which Madame Beck is similar to Lucy, and that is that she prefers to be invisible when carrying out her observations. Boone notes that her ghost-like surveillance suggests she consolidates her power by becoming an invisible, all-seeing presence that is everywhere at once but seen by no one. This is seen in the first line where it says moving without perceptible sound, which is something that reoccurs throughout the novel with her noiseless slippers and so on. Though Lucy steals away into corners in order to observe, she does not actively seek out secrets in the way that Madame Beck does, especially in this passage. The mentioning of Miss Marchmont's lock of hair also reminds the reader how much of an invasion of privacy this is. She goes into her little Miranda book, takes it between the leaves, handles something that's quite personal to Lucy without displaying any kind of thought for Lucy's personal possessions. Madame Beck is also described to have masculine qualities. At the bottom, in What is a Woman to Do, Howitt, in An Art Student in Munich, writes, the assumption of a masculine air or of masculine attire, or of the absence of tenderness in womanhood in mistaken struggle after strength, can never sit more gracefully upon us than do the old men's hats and greatcoats and boots. At the bottom of this passage we have Madame's face being described as a face of stone, and her being called motherly beforehand, but now there are no traces of that, which kind of relates to this absence of tenderness, which is obviously related to a motherly countenance. There's no essence of that at all, and it does not sit gracefully with Madame Beck. It doesn't seem like perhaps a feminine way for her to appear. In the passage, Lucy concludes that Madame Beck's wish to make a judgment of her based on her possessions is not quite acceptable, though the means is quite acceptable, though the means by which she does this are not. However, the reader sees that Madame Beck's actions are solely out of self-interest, and she sees Lucy as a commodity rather than a person. So here we see that Madame Beck's gaze is not as moralised as Lucy's, Lucy does it in order to maybe help other people and to strengthen her personality, whereas Madame Beck does it for self-interest, for her establishment, in order to gain power over others. And in that way it's not, that's how it's different to Lucy's case.
I thought that was very interesting. I'm intrigued by the notion of the female gaze. I noticed it was on Kyriaki's list of prompts and stuff. So is there a kind of a body of secondary criticism in this bibliography got here? Is there material about the female gaze?
I didn't find too much about it. I found a few journals, but it doesn't seem to be, as obviously the male gaze is a term. I didn't really find any kind of specific terminology surrounding it. It was more kind of the way in which each of the characters' gazes are different.
So the male gaze in the kind of Laura Mulvey sense is a man looking at a woman and objectifying her in a way because of her appearance. And she gives the example of the kind of the gaze in the Hitchcock movie and the kind of in Psycho, for example, you're looking at the woman in the shower and so on. But this female gazing, and that's kind of one size fits all concept, isn't it? It's going to garment with only one side because it's all about objectification and appearance and so on. But what are these people doing? What's the nation? Is there a female gaze which all females have, or is it just their particular gazes in this novel? What's going on?
Through the novel, we see that there isn't a particular female gaze, and that they, such as Lucy having a moralised gaze, and Madame Beck's being more about surveillance and self-interest, that perhaps there isn't kind of a set
monolithic female gaze. But how is gazing in this sense different from judging character? Because the male gaze is not judging character, it's judging kind of physical appearance. So what is the nature of this gazing that's going on? I'm really intrigued.
I guess the kind of route that I've taken in this is more about surveillance and probably taking some kind of judgment from the gaze rather than just seeing it and objectifying.
Does gazing make you powerful? I mean, in the kind of male gaze is the notion that somehow you're putting yourself above the object of your objectification. So is it empowering to gaze in this sense?
In Madame Beck's sense, it definitely is. That's her her motive is that she wants power from this surveillance, and she wants to have social control in her school. So in that sense, I think there is power in it, whereas Lucy's probably not so much about power, rather more kind of intrinsic and for her and for moralised.
Because surveillance is an interesting word, isn't it? Kind of, you think of Foucault and so on. There might be a line of an avenue of thought to investigate along those lines. Yeah.
Is there something particular about the novel? I think, again, more of a kind of Mulvey gaze if you think about Lady of Shalott or Goblin Market. Is there something about the genre, the way in which the author approaches this in a kind of novelistic way that impacts? Because I think the strength of what you've been saying of your presentation is, I think, a kind of openness. So rather than maybe a straightforward, even kind of simplistic notion of the gaze as simply objectifying, I think there's a kind of variety and a flexibility in your approach. And do you think it's because of the genre?
I think so, because there's so many levels to it. You've got obviously the characters gazing at each other, and then we are looking at them through the novel. There's Lucy, she's writing and observing, her previous actions. So I think, the novel does kind of open up that flexibility of notion of gaze.
Thank you.